you want. So, okay, here. So, dear participants, today we are having the last session, the seventh session of our course, Fundamentals of ELT. You know, it's difficult to believe that we could make it in the hardest time of like this war, because it's really impossible. And I'm giving the virtual microphone and the floor to our president, Elena Ilyenko, to tell her greetings about this unbelievable course.
Yes, thank you, Marina. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the course, for showing your interest. But the greatest thanks goes to Sally, to the person who made it possible, made this course possible. And thanks to Sally, all this training has happened. And we many times we have already sent our thanks, great thanks to Sally, as she is our longtime friend and colleague. And we are really grateful for her support, especially in the time of war, the hard times we are living now. But I believe this course was as a fresh fresh air that we could feel and can feel in our everyday, not very joyful life. And it was very productive, and it happened to be very effective. As you know, it has become a joint creative workshop when people had an opportunity to share their experience, to listen to what people are doing overseas. And of course, it is always important for us to discuss what concerns us as teachers, as educators. So once again and again, we would like to thank our beloved friend and colleague, Sally. And I believe that it is not the last workshop we are having together. We would like to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I think we will say together at the end of the training. Thank you, Sally, for being with us. Thank you for your support and the energy you put into the development of TESOL Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you very much for your kind words. And I'd like to thank Marina, because she has done as much, if not more, all of those videos. And she's the one who suggested the course. And also she's the technician here. She's been handling all the Zoom and the slides and everything. So thank you, Marina.
My pleasure. And Sally, I want to thank you for this present, because like this is the best Christmas present I personally could get. We went through the topics that were always difficult for me. And now with your support, I deepened into every topic and I learned so much. And the materials that are now on our, with Sally's very small website. Yeah, so all the materials, they can be, it's good that they can be downloaded and used. And people will have time, you know, every time I download a new video, I see that the previous video already had like 50 was watched for 50 times. And I'm so surprised, because every time I understand that those people who couldn't connect, they just watch the videos, and hopefully there will be a moment when they have time and do the tasks and get the certificates, because it's clear when the power is so limited, you don't have time for personal development.
That's right. And I completely understand. I understand that what's happening.
But we hope that one day here there will be this moment. So, and today we are talking about, just let me start from the very beginning. We're talking about classroom management and planning teaching, and we'll start with management. And I especially like this moment. We'll go through the 6th principle of TESOL, and then we'll talk about curriculum lesson planning and important points to remember. And probably at this point, if we don't have Zoom as long as this, we'll stop and reconnect, and then we'll have time for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. So please, Sally.
Okay, thank you. Well, I thought starting this session with the 6 principles for exemplary teaching of English learners that has come out from TESOL International would be a good way to sum up what we have been doing and also to introduce today's topic. So it's been a couple of years since TESOL published these principles. Know your learners, create conditions for language learning, design high-quality lessons for language development, adapt lesson delivery as needed, monitor and assess student language development, and engage and collaborate within a community of practice. I said, I think this is a good summary because we have been engaging and collaborating with the community of practice these past weeks with this course. This is a community of practice. And so we've accomplished number 6, and I know we'll all probably continue to do number 6. I think we've touched on almost all these topics. Today we are going to touch on number 3, design high quality lessons for language development. Now, TESOL International says that these principles are universal guidelines drawn from decades of research in language pedagogy and language acquisition. And TESOL says these are the targets for excellence in teaching and should be a foundation for any English language instruction. Last year at the Hawaii TESOL conference, Deborah Short, who was the president of TESOL at the time and who wrote, I believe wrote or co-authored a book on the 6 principles, was our plenary speaker. And she gave us her slides. So if any of you would like those slides, I can send them to you. So very quickly, if you don't want the slides, that's fine. But would anybody like those slides from Deborah Short? You can either raise your hand right now or put your name in the chat box. I don't know if we have. Okay, anybody want those slides? That details each principle and gives examples.
Elena says she needs them, and yeah.
Okay, Irina. Anybody else want those?
And Elena as well, and Tatiana.
Okay, I think I have. Okay, Irina, Elena, and Tatiana. Okay, great. Okay, so this gives us a nice introduction as well, summary introduction, because we're going to talk about, in a very superficial way, designing high quality lessons for language development, and that entails lesson planning. So let's move on to the next slide. So we're veteran teachers. we know that whenever we plan a lesson or unit, we have to ask ourselves, what do I want my students to learn? In other words, what are the objectives of this lesson? What teaching and learning activities will I use? And we've talked about this at length for speaking, listening, grammar, writing. And then how will I check for understanding, which was our topic the last time we met, assessment. So that's just kind of a general, superficial introduction to lesson and unit planning. And because, and Marina and I discussed this, because this is something we've all been doing for a long time. And I imagine, like me, you might have started out teaching with very detailed lesson plans, and the more you teach, the more abbreviated those lesson plans become. And I think that's natural. So we'll go on to the next slide. And we're not going to go into detail about how to write a lesson plan. You all know that. But I put together, I looked through my files and I found some handouts that I thought might be helpful if you are training teachers or if you're mentoring teachers, mentoring colleagues, new colleagues, might be helpful for curriculum and lesson planning. That first document is called Strategies for Effective Lesson Planning. I don't know if we can, okay. Now, I like this, and you can see I stole the graphic from this one, the graphic that I just showed you. I like this handout because it gives the steps for preparing a lesson, and under each step, it asks questions. So for someone just starting out, okay, I need objectives. What are objectives? How do I go about writing my objectives? It gives you questions for each step of writing a lesson plan. So I think that could be useful because it's pretty straightforward and it gives steps. It's a process to writing the lesson plan. Okay, the next handout is called—
I love this, yes, so.
Yeah, I think this is really pretty comprehensive, but easy to understand. Now, the second one is called a world language lesson plan. And in K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade in the United States, they often call languages other than ESL or English world languages. That's why this is called World Language Lesson Plan. And I decided to include this one because I like the choice of headings in each box. Although you will see a box that says Common Core Standards right there. There it is on the top, Common Core Standards. This is very public school, United States public school. Each state has its standards, which curriculum writers use to develop the objectives. So that doesn't pertain to your situation, but I like the other headings, and you'll notice many of them are things we've talked about. But I also like the very bottom of this template, at the very end of the template, there are reflections. There's a reflection. And so it helps you kind of go back and check what you've done in this lesson. Did I really do this? I know sometimes I write a lesson plan and a piece of it gets forgotten or put aside or sidetracked by someone's comments or needs in the class. So I think this is nice. And if it doesn't fit you, you can always think of your own reflection on a lesson plan. So that's why I've included this one for you. Okay, the next.
Just a second. I don't
Sure.
know why I don't see it. Okay.
Differentiated instruction.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I sense so many things you.
No, it's okay. It's just I didn't see the whole.
Okay. Well, of course, we saw that TESOL standard after planning lessons, sound lessons. It said adjusting lessons to meet our students' needs. And of course, this is scaffolding, and it's also differentiating depending on our students. So we can differentiate content, we can differentiate process, we can differentiate product, learning environment, grouping, and assessment. And so I like this one because it helps us think of all the different ways we can help our students depending on their learning style, their level, their learning style, their needs. Again, differentiating is not always easy, but this does give us reminders of how we can go about doing that. So summative assessment. Do we want to give a quiz every time? Well, we don't have to. There are all these other kinds of summative assessment. You could give journals, logs, portfolios. And so if we do differentiate it, we are touching on different learning styles and different strengths. Yeah.
This is also cool. Okay, yes. So next is on unit planning. Yeah.
Yeah. This is called a unit planning thinking template. And again, I included this one because it includes a number, it includes a lot of things we've gone over in this course. And so as you plan a unit, as you put together lessons under a theme, just as a reminder, or for future teachers as a reminder of the things to keep in mind. And again, most of these we have discussed this during this course. Okay, 2 more.
No, they all are very valuable. Yes. So next is designing and improving. Yeah.
Yes. And this is actually an article. This is an article by Paul Nation, Dr. Paul Nation, and we mentioned his name when we talked about vocabulary and collocations. And again, this is from the English Teaching Forum, is at the State Department. And again, it's an article, but it's very straightforward, I think. And so, again, for teachers in training or to refresh our memories, I think it's an easy article to read, but gives a lot of important information.
So, and sample syllabus now, yeah?
Yeah, and I've included this. This is one of my syllabi from a long time ago. I'm including this because in American universities, and you can tell me if you're doing this now. When I taught in Ukraine, I didn't have to do this for my course, but in American universities, we need to submit a syllabus, usually 2 weeks before the course starts. And in that syllabus, we need to give goals, objectives. We need to give what's going to happen in the class. We need to give policies. You know, what happens if you plagiarize? What happens if you copy work and hand it in and put your name on it? What happens if you skip class a lot? So we have to put this all down, and we also have to put down how we're going to give you a grade. And we talked about weighting. Yeah, we also had to put down our important dates and our schedule. And here's weighting. We talked about weighting with assessment. We had to let our students know. So secret partner letters were this percentage of the grade, essays this percentage. So I'm just bringing this in to show you because it is a way of, it's course planning. And it also leads into our next topic, which is course management, because we have to tell students what's going to happen if you do this. So
we have it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
We also have now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So that moves us into the next topic, which is course management. Classroom management, I should say. And again, Marina and I talked and said, well, you're all old pros at this, not old age-wise, but experienced pros at managing your classes. So this is this again is superficial. Classroom management, important points to remember. These are kind of general points. Would somebody like to read those for us? I'll give my voice a break.
Mm-hmm. Ladies, if you don't, I can read, or Elena. Elena, I feel you can do it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I can see the first, create an effective learning environment, establish rapport. Number 2, communicate classroom procedures clearly. Number 3, project positive expectations and create a motivational environment. Number 4, make every minute count. Number 5, keep everyone engaged with interesting lessons. Number 6, be creative. Number 7, make assessment transparent.
Thank you. Give me a little break here. I think some people might take issue with be creative. However, in my mind, if we want to keep our students engaged with interesting lessons, that involves some level of creativity. So does anyone want to comment on any of these kind of general points for managing a class? Okay, well, on the bottom, I'm sorry.
I think for us as teachers, such point as make every minute count is very essential, because unfortunately we are too limited and we have only at schools it's about 45 minutes. Of course in universities it is a little bit more, but at the same time we are rather limited in time. That's why we have to make every minute count and make our lessons very effective, very progressive and fresh, in order to engage our learners in the lessons.
Thank you. Yes, I know. I felt the same way. Just never enough time. And so part of that lesson planning, going back to lesson planning, was trying to, here's my objective, but how do I reach that objective by the end of 55 minutes? Yeah, very, very true.
I also want to share, I want to speak about the same point, make every minute count. And I am not sure if it is the correct term, graded instruction. Step by step. For example, I plan an activity and it takes 20 minutes or 15 minutes to do it. And I divide it into steps. And step 1, make a list of ideas, and only 2 minutes. I say that time limit is 2 minutes. I set the time, I use my telephone, they hear the sound and they stop writing. We discuss it, and then step 2, based on step 1. And everyone is engaged, is involved. They have no time to do something like that, you know, they just to dream to fly in the skies. And during this time, they are busy all the time. They are active in doing the activities step by step. Sometimes such an activity can have up to 5 or 6 steps. And they don't notice that they really did a lot of work. Well, and you see, at the very beginning, it is just a list of ideas. And at the very end of this activity, they discuss something, they work together, they share, they give comments, they compare, they say that whose presentation or whose list of ideas they like most of all and why. And they are active listeners also at the very end of this activity. And I very often just do such things.
Well, that's a very good point, I think, because it helps keep it helps the teacher, I think, to reach the objective. Of course, it helps the student, but it's also, as you said, they're very much on task and they're accomplishing something, because if you give too much time, as we know, then what are you doing this weekend? Or did you watch that movie last night or whatever? So to keep it, to be able to have a time limit that allows them to accomplish or pretty much accomplish what they need to do and then move on. So very good point. Yes.
I really like the point, make assessment transparent. Among the students, there is an idea that when you are a first-year student, then you work for the marks. And when you are, for example, a fourth-year student, marks work for you. What is the idea that, for example, one student who is considered to be like one of the top students in the class, they already sometimes feel themselves rather relaxed, yeah, because basically, they know that they will get a good mark, yeah. I think it's very good to show that even a student who is not considered to be the top one, this student can get a good mark, a top mark sometimes, according to the way they work. So that's why the assessment should be really transparent. There should be some scale where where there will be no room for a teacher's pet, yeah, so called. And also speaking about the assessment, during one of the TESOL seminars, we were given some videos when students analyze, they are doing peer assessment. And we can see how, what is wrong done. Yeah, there is a range of videos, and a bad assessment, a mediocre one, a better one. Yeah, so what is done wrong? And when students see this type of the process of assessment process, they learn to analyze themselves. Yeah, and to do peer assessment better. Yeah.
Okay, wow, such great points you've all brought up. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I have two in that last, that's okay. So then, I was trying to refresh my memory about everything, and those, what we just looked at were kind of general guidelines, things to remember about classroom management, what can help our classrooms work better. But then, of course, we have these different, well, tell me, what affects classroom management? You see young learners, so we know age has a great effect on classroom management. What else? What affects the dynamics of classroom management? What affects how we can manage the class? Age. What else can you think of?
Like today, even the mood of kids, it affects it greatly.
Yeah.
Maybe their learning style.
Learning style. The size of the class, my very first class that I taught was in Mexico, and I had 33-year-olds. I cried every night because I also had, and this is another thing, environment. I had a blackboard, that was it. I had nothing else. And I went home every night and drew pictures and cried. But still, I have some very good memories about that experience, but it was very challenging for classroom management. So age, environment, if they're sitting in a freezing classroom, or in Hawaii, there were a lot of complaints from teachers because most of the schools didn't have air conditioning and it gets very, very hot. So the environment. Here we have elective classes. Some classes students can choose to take and some are required. And their motivation, overall motivation. Yeah, so there are a lot of dynamics, a lot of issues playing into classroom management.
And I would add also personality of a teacher. Yeah, we have this practice at school for our students, and we can pay attention how children work much better with the teacher they have got used to. Yeah, and the new one, so they still, it creates some problems at the initial stages.
Yeah, well, I think for children, for young learners, the second one, rules, rituals, routines, transitions are very, very important. Having routines for children, you know, starting off with a hello song or a good morning song. Having weather talk, having calendar talk. And then there are all kinds of transitional songs or little ditties, little rhymes to transition from one kind of activity to another. I think those are very important with young learners. And then of course, with young learners, developmentally appropriate activities. We have to know what they are capable of doing, what those little minds can take in. Tatiana talked about testing and how older students think they're just entitled to a certain good grade. We have to be consistent. We have to set clear expectations for all young students and older and be consistent in applying the rules. So Tatiana mentioned teacher's pet. Everybody has to follow the rules and everybody will be, you know, it's the same for everyone. Now this one I have to say I'm guilty. When I taught those children, I don't think I did this and I wish I had known this years ago, but give behavior specific praise rather than disciplining. So I like the way you stack the books instead of good job. I think I have a tendency to say good job to little kids all the time, but I will now try to remember that behavior specific praise is better than good job. Okay, and if we go on to the next, for young learners, the list was very long. Problem solving prompts instead of put that away right now, which I probably said to that class of 33-year-olds. We should say, where should that paper be? Get in line. No, how should you be standing right now? So, okay, so these are just a few reminders for your teachers in training or for all of us. As I say, I now feel bad because all those years ago when I was teaching the little children, I'm sure I said, I couldn't say put that away. There was nothing to put away, but I'm sure I said get in line. At the very bottom, you'll see Peace Corps management. I have 2 books that were free downloads. They were online books, free downloads. One is Peace Corps Classroom Management. The other is Practical Classroom English, which touches on management from Oxford University Press. They are quite long, but if any of you would like me to email those to you, you can again raise your hand. If anybody wants either of those books, Tatiana, would you like both, or is there one in particular? Oops, I think we lost Tatiana.
Yeah, but no, she's here. She's here.
No, no,
Elena,
yeah, just haven't muted.
should I
myself.
send you both or one? Is there
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
Both, okay.
Yeah.
And Elena, would you like both or one?
Both.
Okay, I will
Both.
probably send you 2 email because they are quite large. So, okay, anybody else want those books?
Raisa wants as well.
Raisa, okay. Okay.
I like to read books.
Okay. All right.
Yesterday I looked through the papers and I was surprised to find the file with documents with materials from Summer Institute, Vinnytsia, 1995.
Oh my goodness, were you cleaning house?
yeah.
Sorting and
And,
throwing.
And on handouts there were names: Gabi, Christina, Sally, Chuck.
Oh yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
I like to read.
I know, sweet memories, sweet memories. Okay, and then we can go on to the very last slide. And I think I was thinking about all of you and your online classes. And of course, there are some things that are similar, general classroom management for face-to-face and online, but then there are a few things that might be a little different. For example, I've read that we should exaggerate our expressions and tone of voice slightly when teaching online. We should try to have students keep their cameras on so that we know they're with us. We can add visual cues, excuse me, not clues, cues. And I did do this when I was teaching writing online. I developed not writing. I was teaching a course in our MA TESOL program for teaching English to children. And I developed an icon for the different types of activities we were doing online. So right away, the teachers in training could see, oh, this is a writing activity, this is a reflection activity, this is whatever. So that seemed to work quite well. Keep lessons active. You are all doing that in breakout rooms and chat box. And then I added one more handout, and we don't really need to look at it, but I'll tell you, I couldn't help it. As I've been telling you, things
We need it, yeah.
turn up in my box that have something to do and with what so this is called using micro breaks in online language teaching, but I call them brain breaks. It's the same thing, brain breaks, micro breaks. Do you remember W, O, W?
Mm-hmm.
Let's try it one more time. W, W, O, W, W, O, W. Wow. It's a micro break. It's a brain break. And I couldn't help but include this because if you remember that very first class, I gave you a handout that asked you to look at these different kinds of techniques, activities, and to talk about whether you use them or not. And one was movement. And that was the one that got the most comments. No, I can't use movement. I never use movement. Maybe movement with children. And maybe some people were thinking big, like some real, running around or running a race or something. But no, WOW is movement. And it's a slight break that gets our adrenaline, our muscles moving. And boy, we need those for online teaching, for face-to-face teaching, especially if we're doing back-to-back classes. So I just wanted to say there is a place for movement in online courses and face-to-face courses. And also another point that came up with a lot of people was providing choice. How do I give choice? It's chaos if I give students choice. I tried to show you one way to do that with the reflection questions. Each time we gave you 4 reflection questions, and you had a choice of choosing one. So that's one way to give your students choice. You know, if you feel you can give them equal tasks and let them choose one. So, okay. So we have this micro breaks gives you some ideas of how you can, different kinds of micro breaks instead of just wow or okay. But I want to tell you WOW. Here's what I read this morning. Zelensky wows Washington with inspiring address to Congress. So here's our WOW. Zelensky wows Congress. So any comments, questions? And we've gone past 40 minutes, Marina.
Yeah. We are lucky. So I still have long Zoom.
So would anybody like to add any more comments about classroom management in general, classroom management with young learners, or classroom management for online classes, or anything in general, just what we talked about today? Any comments or questions? Or... Well, we did have quite a few comments along the way, and that's great. I thank you for, that's wonderful, what you've added to the presentation today.
Maybe there was something special that you tried from the course and you would like to share, or maybe there is anything that you would like to try. So
yeah, we had those 2 questions at the end of the session today. We wanted to hear from you. Have you tried anything that we've talked about in this course? Or do you hope to try something? And yes, Raisa?
Yeah, and I remember that maybe 2 weeks ago, there was such a question or point that how to maximize speaking of students in class. Now our students have their holidays, and just when we start the second semester, I plan to design some activities, how to do that using different online tools. And also I plan to teach myself or to ask somebody to teach me how to use breakout rooms in Zoom. And as I already have designed several activities for pair work and group work. And you see that just I want to do that with my students. They are very active. This year I teach 3 different groups there for 3 students. Well, and it's about that point, maximizing their speaking in class. Being active participants, listen to their colleagues, paying attention to keywords or maybe key vocabulary, topical vocabulary, and just keeping in mind important ideas or just new information they can add to somebody's story. It's about that, different ideas.
Okay, great. Great. Irina?
Thank you for this idea. Yeah, just about how to maximize that.
So I would like to share my teaching experience. So sometimes classroom management can be really a challenge if we take into account individual learning styles of our students. I can mention 2 extremes that happened in my teaching practice. One of them is that a few years ago, I had a student who was absolutely reluctant and unwilling to make up dialects with anyone in the group. under no circumstances at all. And when I suggested that, okay, I will be your partner, let's make up a dialogue, he refused point blank. And when I suggested another activity for him, his answer was, no, I will make up a dialogue, but alone. And he wrote 2 roles himself and then produced it. And he tried to imitate 2 people speaking, but it was absolutely impossible to involve him in pair work with any other student in the group. That was his style. And it was a challenge for me, of course. And on the other hand, I had a student who was extremely super active. And he didn't give a chance anybody else to speak a word. He, if you don't make him stop, he can talk the whole lesson alone and he will be absolutely happy. That's great, but we should somehow organize the communication, collaboration. And that is also a problem for me, how to stop him, yes, and to involve him in communication, but not to hear only his voice all the time, yes, and to be pleased with it, that he's so active and he can discuss any topic without any problem. So sometimes it can really be a challenge.
Right.
I agree with everything that was presented today, and I think that one of the most significant things for primary school learners, for young learners, that Sally mentioned today, that is to minimize competition, because according to our new Ukrainian school reform, it is really so. We do not emphasize competitiveness and competition among young learners. And even, you know that teachers nowadays do not put any grades to young learners at school, up till the 5th form under the school reform. And I think it is the right thing. It is secret information only for the parents of the children, not to somehow to create this unhealthy atmosphere in the class, especially with young children. And I think that in this situation, only some independent expert testing or evaluation can take place to minimize this competition and some negative effects and circumstances, results that it can provoke, really. I think it's very important.
Right. I found that with certain groups of like college students, competition actually worked well. They got very excited, but I do think with young learners, yeah, it's better to try to create a cooperative atmosphere. But I wanted to ask you, Irina, were you able to resolve these 2 classroom management challenges that you just told us about?
Not in full scope. I somehow tried to level the situation, yes, to solve this problem, but I wasn't successful every time, every lesson, really.
I've had some similar situations, and I guess like with the student who dominates the classroom, I've tried to take them to my office and just talk with them and try to explain the importance of everybody cooperating, working together, and that, you know, you can show leadership by encouraging others to speak rather than, and sometimes that helps somewhat. And then there was that handout I gave you. And one of my colleagues swears by this, like the green and red pieces of paper, and saying very clearly, if it's a whole group discussion, you know, I welcome your participation. I want to hear your opinions or your answers, whatever. But once you speak, you need to turn over the green and you cannot speak again until everybody else has a red piece of paper on their desk too. She swears. I haven't used it, but she swears up and down, and that works. And she would, you know, she told teachers in training, use this as a classroom management technique. So, and I think that one handout I gave other ideas for trying to have, kind of balanced participation. It's really tricky. I've had situations where people didn't want to work with one student. It was a little different because your student didn't want to work with the whole class. But I've had situations where students, did not want to sit in a group with another. I remember one case, and it was quite by luck, where there was a student and nobody wanted to work with her. She didn't speak very well. She was very quiet. She was kind of awkward. But this was in Japan, and in Japan, I also taught a course called Language and Culture Through Dance. And she was in that class, and she danced very well, even though she looked kind of tall and awkward. So it was quite by chance. But one day when the weather was really awful and the energy level was low, and because I believe in movement, I told everybody, stand up, I'm going to teach you a dance. And I did one of the dances that we did in that course, and then we tried to do it, and she did it so gracefully, and the other students are kind of like, not, and they looked at her in awe. And I think the point was that they saw she was good at things. Maybe she wasn't good at speaking English, but she was good at something. She danced better than anybody in that classroom. So I think it's not the same case as yours, Irina, but I think when you have a student like that who's kind of the overlooked one in the classroom by other students, if you can somehow allow them to show them what they are good at, it makes the other students kind of go, oh, well, okay, this person is good at something. So if we can let our students shine in some way, if they're not so good in English or whatever language we're teaching. But that's a tricky one. I might have said, okay, you have to come to my office and do this for me at this time, because this time's convenient for me. If it's not convenient for you. And okay. Anybody else have any ideas on what Irina told us, or on this question of have you used anything, or do you want to try anything in the future?
May I ask a question which is not basically related to the topic, but well, it's a question of handwriting. I paid attention that today, like nowadays, our children are not taught at school to handwrite in English. So they are taught to type. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what do you think of this idea? Because as far as I remember, when I was a child, I was taught that handwriting, it develops brain and your fingers and so on.
Well, we have the same issue in the United States. Yeah, they're not, for the most part, not teaching cursive writing. Students are typing, but they're also printing. I have a 27-year-old nephew and a 23-year-old or 28, 24, something like that, nephew and niece, and they print everything in this tiny, tiny letters. And I'm like, what is this? And then I've heard stories that they can't even read cursive writing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think writing is important. I would certainly like it to be taught, but it's an issue here as well. Yeah. And I don't know if at some point we'll come for full circle like we do with so many things. If at some point people will say, oh, this is not good that we're not teaching handwriting.
Yeah, it was such a battle for me. I have only one child student. Usually I don't work with children, but since I'm teaching his parents, his mother, his father, so I'm teaching the boy as well. So we tried to learn cursive writing, and it was a real challenge. Yeah.
I mean, there is that other issue, which I've heard about too. Can you read cursive writing? I mean, if you can't read it, you are handicapped in some way in your knowledge of the language, because you're going to see it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Did you have some kind of like, do you have the papers that we usually use for teaching writing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that didn't help. But I guess I would, you know, if that is something you want to pursue or they want to, I would give them that reason that in order to be able to read English, you have to read print text, you have to be able to read handwritten text. Yeah, interesting.
And now it's so difficult to buy Montessori tables. We had them in the 90s, I think, when you could, you know, practice cursive. It was plastic table with letters. And you could just, they were called Montessori. Like that.
I never, when I was learning cursive, we didn't have plastic. We had paper.
Paper as well, yeah.
And we spent hours on writing.
Yeah.
On cursive handwriting, and got a grade on it.
Elena, you raised your hand. Yeah.
Thank you. So firstly, I'd like to thank you for all these interesting sessions. They are rather productive because they are about skills. And as we have already mentioned, New Ukrainian School, firstly, it's about practical skills. And we as teachers have to develop such skills in our students and of course, pupils, firstly. And also, I'd like to share with my experience of reflection. It's a way how I organized it with my students, and I named it as a parking lot. So it was a poster with such a title as parking lot. And when the lesson was over, I asked my students to leave some words or some impressions about the lesson. And they really like it, they enjoy it. And then I could read these words, their impressions, and analyzed the lesson and analyze the fact what I done perfectly or what I done not so perfectly. So, and it worked really great, but it happened in our offline learning.
Were there comments anonymous?
Yeah.
That's a very good idea. I like that a lot. Parking lot. I know this is different, it's not reflection, but I know a lot of teachers who use word walls. So they have paper on the wall and students can add new words they've learned and then they go over them periodically together and talk about them and try to use them. So this idea, yeah, that's a great idea of putting something on the wall, poster or what we call butcher paper, for students to have a common area where they can add something that can be theirs. But I love that idea of a parking lot with reflection. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess so, unless anybody else has anything. I do want to say I thank you all who are here today and all of the people who will be watching this at some time for taking part. I know I refreshed my memory on a lot of things. And as I just mentioned with the language for children, for classroom management with children, I'm like, oh, I wish I had known this all those years ago when I was dealing with those little children. Or I wish, yeah, because anyway. So it's been good for me to review, to refresh, to expand And thank you for all of your ideas and contributions to this. And please, my email must be somewhere. And
Yes, I will send it in the final message as well.
so
Yeah.
please feel free to email me if you have questions, if there's something you're looking for, if you just want to say hello and tell me how you're doing, please feel free to do that. And know that I am wishing, praying for a better 2023 for you. And I'm looking forward to the day when I can go back to Ukraine and we can have some face-to-face workshops together. So I'm really looking forward to that.
After our victory, you should come.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
And we are with you, Sally. I can see there are two balloons, or just what are they? Blue and yellow.
Those are two balloons. Actually, there was Ukrainian Independence Day celebration that I went to, and they gave me balloons, and the balloons are still inflated.
Oh,
a sign, I think, of the strength, the resilience of all of you. And so they were sitting, and I had them sitting over there, and I thought, it's the last meeting, why don't I put them over there with my Ukrainian candle? And to just know you are always in my thoughts and prayers.
We know that. I know about that.
So.
okay. Great. Thanks for this wonderful time. You know, you all, like the participants, Sally, and you supported me personally so much. And I hope that this course will be of some use for other people as well.
I hope so. Yes.
Yeah. It was such a hard time, but at the same time, it was a great support. So let's now wait for our victory, celebrate the strange Christmas and great love. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
Okay,
Merry
goodbye.
Christmas
Yeah.
and Happy
So
New Year.
then, bye-bye.
We hug you.
I hug all of you too. Air hugs. Virtual hugs.
Thank you.
Virtual hugs here.
Take care.
Okay, take care. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Sally, great, thanks. Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.